for?
Trump.
Come on, bro. Harris tells backwards, bro.
What?
Harris.
Man, we not voting for that, man. We voted for Trump, man.
Why?
Man, we not with none of that, man. Chuck be looking out for the black community, man. We ain't doing nothing,
Yeah.
man.
I respect. You all good, my boy.
All right, man. Keep moving.
Yeah.
And who you voting for, Trump or Kamala?
Man, Trump, we ain't with that Indian ass, man.
Who, Kamala?
Yeah, we ain't
Why you don't fuck with her?
because she with them immigrants. I'm black. Them Venezuelans taking all our bread. They out here creating gangs. They had gang banging, breaking in abandoned cribs, all type of good shit. We ain't with it.
So you don't like an open border?
Nope. We need that border.
Hey, what are your thoughts on when Trump got shot?
Man, hey, don't try to take my boy out. Make America great again.
Hell yeah.
Make America great again.
Hey, Trump or Kamala?
Shit, Trump, be honest.
Damn, so why Trump though?
Why Trump? Because, shit, we used to get paid and shit like he used to keep immigrants.
Who you
What's up, good people? Today is Thursday, August the 28th, and I just wanted to come on here and speak to you guys about a couple of things, in which I have a short clip where you guys see about three different gentlemen asked who that they were going to vote for. And of course, this would have been earlier this year or late last year. And all three of them said that they were voting for Trump, and they gave their reasons on why they were voting for Trump. And now, keep in mind that this gas station that they were at, that these guys are in Chicago, in which, of course, they could not have known what this president was going to try and do. And I wouldn't be surprised that he is going to be allowed to deploy the troop in Chicago, the military in Chicago. Just reason being, it seems, no matter how hard opposition fights against him, it seems like he always comes out on top. And I'm saying this because it shows the level of, or a level of misunderstanding when it comes down to people in general. You heard one guy say that he's voting for him because he's giving them money. Well, at least a couple of guys, I believe, said that. And then another guy, in which two of them, but one they let elaborate on the fact that they're migrants coming in from the border, and apparently he feels like they're taking jobs from the American people, and as well as that they're bringing gangs into the country too. And I always say this, is that we cannot let money dictate our actions for the most part, especially when we're in control, if you see what I'm saying, because you're voting for someone because he cut you a couple of checks or however many checks it may have been when he did that, and it wasn't like it was life-changing money, but because he gave you a few $100s, you feel like he's for you and that he's the person to put in the office. And in reference to this gang thing, and I remind you that these young men or whatever have you were in Chicago. And so he's complaining about gangs from or Hispanic gangs that's coming across the border, but anyone and everyone should know that Chicago has a big issue with black gangs killing one another. Yeah, there may be Hispanic gangs sprinkled in those equations as well, but the more televised, the more nationally known violence issue or whatever have you is with the black gangs. You got the BDs and the GDs, and who knows whatever else gangs they may have in New York or in Chicago, But we know for a fact that those are the two major gangs. And we all know, if you're of a certain age, and probably even younger people now, know that the GDs, as well as the BDs, but the GDs started in Chicago. The GD stronghold was so powerful that it spread most definitely to the east and to the south, because the neighborhood that I grew up in, and a lot of the people that I even went to school with that lived in different areas, were known to claim GD in 7-4. And so I say that because this guy, and that's what we as a people have a problem with, is blaming other groups of people for certain things and not looking at the problems that we are causing and that our own people are causing. In which, once again, we all know that the black on black crime is a lot worse in Chicago than Hispanic on black or vice versa. But yet he used that as an excuse to say that's the reason why he voted for the current president. And like I said initially, that there's a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of miseducated people or undereducated people out there. And because those guys are more than likely caught up with their own demons, meaning that they're probably more than likely still in the streets, still out there what people call thugging, getting high, getting drunk, and doing all these other things. And so when you get someone like a Donald Trump, who is literally a thug, that's a billionaire and walks around in suits and ties, and because they can identify with this guy, they voted for this guy. You know, I was talking about this yesterday, is that when you start to get away from street life and street activity and things that really are not healthy for you and or the community, you start to see just how ignorant you were as a person to be involved in certain things. And you also see how when something ignorant is going on around you, how ignorant you were to laugh about it or to clap about it. You see what I'm saying? Because we run to certain things that we should actually be running from. And it's because of our lifestyles. And so we should understand the fact that if you're into certain things, you're going to be attracted to certain things. And so, like I said, more than likely these young men were still caught up in that thug mentality. And that's why they looked at this current president as being the right candidate for that position. I also want to talk about, in which I got other video recordings talking about, it's actually a couple of more things, but I got my video recordings on these things about how, for example, so what happened is the newly elected CEO, president, whatever she was described as for the CDC here in Atlanta, and she's been on that job for less than 4 months, or less than 4 weeks, so less than a month she's held this position. And so that stumbling, fumbling guy, Kennedy, he came down here, had a meeting, and I guess that meeting may have involved her, and there were some things that they had a disagreement about. And so he went back, of course, and he told his boss, you know, crying, talking about how she was going against what he wanted her to do, and how she's not going to lie and mislead the community, because that's what this presidency and the people around him, that's what they want people to do, is lie and mislead the people. And so he fired her. And his reason for firing her is because she's not on board with the agenda that Trump has in place for his presidency. If that's such a vague and it's such a vague statement to make for firing someone, it's because she is not on board with his agenda. And like I said, it's because she is using facts and not using what people call this fake ideology about how vaccinations are doing this to people and how if you don't get vaccinated, you live a healthier life. All this nonsense, all these fairy tales that this guy Kennedy has been coming up with and has been saying even prior to getting into the position that he's in. But yet, he's the one that's in power. He's the one that's calling the shots over the health department and all these other things. And because of that reason, and because she did not agree with him nor with Trump, Trump fired the lady after being on the job for about a month. And it goes to show you how ridiculous this regime that's over this country is. It's so bad that if you have a disagreement with what they're doing, they're just going to fire you. They're not going to sit there and hash it out. They're not even going to listen to your side of the story. It's what they say or the highway. And that's a terrible, terrible way to run a government. Because a government should be able to listen and also take good advice, in which we can see that this presidency can do none of that. This Kennedy guy is the same guy that had pictures of him and his family in a creek full of bacteria and other stuff swimming around talking about it's good for you. And I get it, you got a lot of these country folks that swim in creeks and all this other nonsense, but what we should understand is that creek water is, a lot of times it's sewer water, y'all. You understand what I'm saying? And you got people swimming around in it. And don't get me wrong, we stayed near a creek when I was growing up, and there were times because I was a child and didn't know any better that I played in the creek. But that's as a child. As a grown man, you're not going to catch me in anybody's creek swimming around or running through the water unless I have to. If that's to get to the other side or to save or do something like that. But just to go out there for recreational purposes, I'm not finna be in anybody's creek. But this is what this Kennedy guy does. He plays in a creek full of bacteria and unhealthy agents or whatever have you, and tells everybody it's okay. But like I said, y'all, this is what the American people want. A majority of the American people voted in, and this is what y'all wanted. Even if y'all say that this is not what y'all voted for, this is what you voted for. If this wasn't what you voted for, it wouldn't be happening, if you see what I'm saying. Regardless of if they sat there and told you the truth or they sat there and lied to you, this is what majority of the American people voted for. And so, you know, you made the coffee, you made the tea, now you have to drink it. And everybody else around you are having to deal with the majority's problem and the problem that they created. You know, and as well, what I want to talk about, and I got a video recording talking about these types of things somewhat, to where in Minnesota, there's been at least a couple of shootings, but this last shooting that occurred was extremely aggravating and disturbing, if you ask me, and which all of them are. But you got this, I don't even know what he is. I think he might be a transgender or something like that, because they said it was a guy, but when you see the photo of him, he's got earrings on and he's got his hair in two ponytails or whatever have you, looking like a girl. But it's not about what he identifies as. This is about the decision that this person made. And to go and shoot up, I don't care if they Catholic, I don't care if they were Muslims, I don't care about none of that. To go in there and shoot in a auditorium or whatever have you, full of children. And even if it wasn't just children, even if it was an adults in there, but to do something like that shows just how disturbing people's minds are and can be. But here's my thing. Like I spoke about, how people sit here and they try to blame the black community. They try to blame the Hispanic community for majority of the crimes and all these other things. And here we go again with another white person. And keep in mind, I'm far from being prejudiced. But I don't like the fact when people try to take my people or the colored people and try to label us as the problem in society, in which the ones with common sense knows that's not factual. Because like I said on my other recording, that this president is planning on deploying the military into the different states, and he's going to put the military in the more urban areas, the areas where you have more minorities than you do the white people. That's what his plans are, y'all, and it's cut and dry. If you don't see that, then you're obviously blind to facts and to what's going on around you, in which, in all honesty, a lot of people out here are truly blind if they voted for this guy anyway. So I get it if you don't see the big picture, because you were blinded to vote him in the office in the beginning. But yeah, this was another Caucasian person that went and did this mass shooting. And thankfully, there were only, and it's not even thankfully, because it's sad to have one person killed, but 2 children lost their lives. These 2 children are not going to be able to go to prom. They're not going to be able to learn how to drive a car. They're not going to be able to do anything in life now, because you had this ignorant, single-minded person go in and shoot up that room full of children. But it still is a God blessing that there wasn't more lives lost in that situation, because there were 17 other people that were shot in this confusion that was going on. But like I say, y'all, it was another Caucasian. And I'm not saying that it's not a lot of crime in the black community, because there is. I grew up in the hood. I can count. I have lost several people that I had conversated with on multiple occasions, played basketball with, played baseball with. So I understand that in the black communities, there is a problem. Crime is a problem. Crime is a problem across the entire nation. It's not just one community. Do you understand what I'm saying? And yes, when you are in lower income areas, the crime rate is higher, because you have a lot of people that don't see the gold at the end of the rainbow, so to speak, or the light at the end of the tunnel, because they feel like they're in a no-win situation. But in all honesty, you're not. We're not. You can come up out of those situations, y'all. Just because you growing up in the hood don't mean that you have to always have a hood mentality. You can change the way that you think. Don't get me wrong, your upbringing and the things that you have seen, or the things that you see as a child, as a young adult, and things in life will mold the way that you act, the way that you react, and the way that you think. But we have to do our best to try and have self-control. And that goes for anybody. You got some people that take those two brothers that grew up in Hollywood or whatever they was, Beverly Hills, that's trying to get out of prison now. That's been in there forever and a day. They killed their own parents. They grew up with a lot of money. So when I tell you crime happens everywhere, the difference between the crime in the low income areas is that you have a lot of property crimes and people rob, stuff like that. And there is a lot of homicides as well. But when these comes down to these rich areas or the areas with more money, you see a lot. When a crime does occur, 9 times out of 10 is somebody getting killed. They don't have that in between. It's somebody just snapped and killed somebody. But like I say, it's everywhere. And it's something, if we could do something about it, should be done. But I'm going to stress this, and I'm going to keep stressing, is that crime is something that we cannot put an end to, y'all. It literally would take everybody in each state as a person to change their way of thinking and stop thinking about how can you get over on the next person. You see what I'm saying? Because even when you get out into the working society, there's a lot of jobs that's out in the community that actually encourage their employees to take advantage of the consumer. And it's a form of what I guess you would call legal robbery. The car business, for example, I worked in it, so I can talk about this. I was in the service department, and they would encourage and give you a round of applause if let's say if a job costs $500 and you sold it for $1,500, meaning that you added an extra $1,000 to that job, and the customer paid for it and the customer went for it, they would actually give you a round of applause and say that you did a good thing. The customer doesn't realize that they've been ripped off. They're not calling the police on their service advisor telling, oh, he just took $1,000 from me and ripped me off. And the police ain't coming up there kicking down the doors of the dealership and locking up the people that work there. But this goes on even in the working society. And so when somebody goes and breaks into someone's car or breaks into someone's house, which I'm not saying is right because it is wrong, but they go in there and they take what they want from these people, it's the exact same thing, y'all. Because that $1,000 that this person was overcharged could have paid for God knows what in this person's life. And we don't even know if that person truly has the money other than on a credit card or having to take out a loan in order to pay for their cars to be repaired so that they can go to work and pay off the loan that they just had to take out because of being ripped off. So this goes on even in the legal side of society, so to speak. So it's all wrong. There needs to be action taken on both sides of the field, y'all. It's everything. It's just bad, it seems, y'all. And we have to say something about it. Because we always want to point the finger at the man or the woman that's in the streets. But corporate America is just as bad, if not worse. Because we know a lot of these people with these millions and billions of dollars are calling shots. They are having people knocked off. They are paying hitmen. Hear me when I say this, y'all. They are taking advantage of vulnerable men and women. But yet they want to always point the finger at the little street dude. And which, once again, I'm not saying being a street dude is good, because it isn't. Because once again, I've lost many of friends, y'all, and it's sad. And I'm talking about the gun violence. I know many of people that I grew up with, that I know personally, that have done egregious things and taking people's lives and are sitting in prison for the rest of their lives for the actions that they chose to do. So we have to start doing our best, y'all. And I know it's not easy. And I'm going to continue to say this. I'm not just going to say something as if it could just be done. Because everything takes work. It takes practice. We have to figure out a way of practicing on having self-control, practicing on having patience and understanding and being able to listen. Because I have issues with all the things I just said to you guys, and I'm working on mine too. Just like you do push-ups and squats, and some people practice on rolling up their cigars and all this stuff. We need to practice on our mental health, y'all, because it's mental instability that causes all the problems that we see every day and that we encounter. It's our mental instability that's causing these issues, y'all. But like I say, man, the government is not here for us, especially the government that's in control now. They are only there for their own self-gratification. They are only there to help the rich become richer as well as help themselves become richer. It's all about me, me, me. It's not about we, and you, or us, us. It's about them. And I'm about to get off of here, y'all, but there was one more thing I want to say is that there was a meeting in the Oval Office or whatever they want to call it. And one of the news media guys asked this current president whether or not he had heard about what happened over in Palestine as far as Israel bombed a facility over there. I think it might even have been a hospital. But regardless, they bombed the building twice. They hit it twice. And several news media people were killed in the process, and also some paramedics and more than likely some civilians were also killed in the melee. And so he asked Trump, had he heard about what occurred? And Trump was like, no. What happened? And so the guy, you know how Trump is too. He's not going to listen to everything that you say. So the only thing that the guy was truly able to get out was the fact that that Israel bombed the building and that several news media personnel had been killed. And the guy was trying to say some more, and of course Trump cut him off because it's all about what he has to say. You understand? He doesn't listen. And of course, I know that he did hear about that situation. There's no way on God's green earth that all of the people at that point in time had heard about what occurred, and the president of the entire country did not hear what had happened. That's nonsense. He heard about it. But anyway, so his response was, "Oh, that's terrible. I want this to end." And then, of course, it's about him. That's why that was coming out of his mouth. He was saying something about that's why and they cut him off as far as the news channel that I was listening to. But my point is that when it comes down to any and everything that occurs with any other country or even in this country, it's all about I, in which anybody, once again, who uses their common sense would know that this guy can't do a darn thing, but he runs around here as if he is the savior of the entire world, because everything is all about what he do or what he has done or what he is trying to do. You see what I'm saying? And it's terrible. And another thing, he apparently doubled the tariffs on India as of yesterday. Now India is being tariffed 50%. And his reasoning behind it is that India is buying an oil from Russia. And so he did a 50% tariff on India because I guess India's not buying oil from the United States or whatever it may be. But here's my thing. You literally just had a meeting with the leader of Russia, but yet you put a tariff on India because you don't want India buying their oil and their goods from Russia. Like I said, y'all, this is such a darn circus and so much calamity and confusion that's going on in politics and in the government right now. There's no clarity at all. Because if you think, that's just like me having a friend and my friend is selling candy just as well as I'm selling candy. And because you decide to buy your candy from my friend and not from me, when you come to me, I'm going to double the amount that I normally would charge somebody for candy. But I'm going to double it for you because you didn't buy it from me last time. You see what I'm saying? He is such a snake. If you see, he truly is, y'all. Because it just doesn't make any sense at all. He doesn't want to see anybody else be successful. He wants the United States to be the only successful country in all of the world. In which, once again, common sense tells us is that that's impossible. Because if we're the only successful country and all of the other countries aren't successful, then that means that more than likely we're not going to be as successful as we should be because they're not successful. You get what I'm saying? When you're playing a team sport and you only got one good player, let's say baseball, and only one of your players is really good and the rest of them are just trash, y'all are not going to win a championship. Y'all are not going to make it to the playoffs. Y'all are not going to do anything. You're not going to be successful. You have to have successful people around you in order to reach the ultimate goal. And this is what this president does not understand. He feels like it should only be about him and him alone. But y'all, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you other than y'all put the wrong person in office. You really did. And I can't say what Kamala would have done because it doesn't matter at this point. She's not going to be president. You get what I'm saying? So it don't even matter what she could have done or should have done or would have done. It's about what's being done right now. But hey, I had to get that off my chest, y'all. But I hope y'all have a great rest of your Thursday. And whenever I get any more good news or bad news to talk about, I'll be back on here. But y'all take it easy and I'll talk to you soon.